And now, like all these things have added extra layers to their menus.
Exactly.
It's like,
Yeah.
I don't need more choices. I don't need more choices. But yes, so I wanted you to talk about the toxicological aspect of what's going on.
Yeah.
In part, I've actually been having well, maybe I should introduce you first. So Dr. Magarinos, Haroldo, my friend, we met, gosh, it's probably been 8 years ago. I don't know. It was maybe a year or two after I founded the Bio Collective, and he was in Denver at that time, and he found us, and I invited him to come by the lab, and he was really the first person with a medical degree that I had spoken to that seemed to really understand the microbiome. And I mean, it's hard to believe it's been this long, but he has really expanded his knowledge, and I've expanded my knowledge, and we have kind of riffed off of each other over these 8 years. And of course, with everything that's been going on in public health the last 4 years, that's kind of accelerated these gut connections and what's going on with toxicity. And in the last couple of weeks, I've been communicating more with Dr. Stephanie Seneff. We did her Toxic Legacy in our book club. And, you know, I've started to look at COVID in a kind of completely different lens, in that I have a crazy idea that maybe we have reached a tipping point of organophosphate poisoning in the environment as a whole and in human beings. And I base that somewhat on a paper that I actually showed the group from 2014 from a fellow by the name of Andre Leu, L-E-U, that showed the correlation with the rise in GMO corn and soy and the use of glyphosate in about 20 different chronic diseases. And it was pretty alarming back then in 2014, and he has not published a follow-up paper. But since that time, there are more than 60 crops now that have glyphosate on it. And then we have all these other organophosphate insecticides in the environment, and we're seeing, you know, the collapse of insects and birds. And so anyway, I thought, you know, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about what you're doing on what you're seeing and what you're doing on the toxicological side, and how that's impacting our microbiome.
Yeah, definitely. That's probably has been a journey that I've been on board for the past more dedicated in the past 3 years. It was something that it hit me in the face. I was talking to Martha and discussing all these different types of patterns of microbes and things that were rising in people's gut and all these weird symptoms. And then we have a lot of tools for trying to improve those. And we know probiotics are fantastic for improving many of those conditions. And so diet and many other things that we can use in our toolkit for improving these gut microbiome related issues. But then I start seeing something that was a pattern. I was hitting a wall pretty frequently, and there was something that was blocking what was supposed to work in a more long-term basis. And it was something that at that time I couldn't figure it out, but I was, of course, thinking about environmental and of course all the ingredients in processed foods that actually are very, very nasty for our microbiome, our cells as well. But what it hit me actually was the moment of the aha moment that I got the realization is the accumulation part. So the accumulation brings more recirculation of these toxins into the gut environment. And actually, that's the entry point. That's where all the toxins are coming in first. That's where all get dumped after getting incorporated in the blood circulation or the liver pathways, whatever the route is, it's going to get in the gut first. And then who's going to receive all these toxins? Well, these are going to be the microbes that are living in your microbiome, your gut microbiome, and especially in the small bowel. And if you see the trending problems right now about gut issues, all are based on small bowel, typically microbiome issues. It's the whole conversation about SIBO, for example, is nothing more than just an imbalanced terrain in the small bowel. And we are getting all the other aspects of imbalances in matter in terms of translocation of microbes from one place to another. That's especially true for the mouth to the gut, and that's another topic we can talk about maybe in a different location more in depth. But for now, we have a lot of microbes in the mouth, and those can get translocated to the gut. And toxins are actually blocking the filter systems we have for preventing those things to happen. So they disbalance the terrain conditions for the gut microbiome, and also they block the pathways that are needed to prevent translocation and other alterations that can happen that can imbalance the gut microbiome as well. So I got very, very into toxins, and probably right now, there's absolutely no one I see that doesn't go through a toxicological analysis, and most of the times, if not probably every single time, a detoxification protocol, along with the microbiome balancing protocols. You can't get done one thing without the other, to my understanding today, with the world we're living in, with all the toxins we're getting exposed to, and that they're getting more and more over the years. So it's a critical moment to realize that we live in a toxic world, that yes, it's happening to all of us, not to the neighbor, not to someone that we know like in another state. This is happening to all of us, and we need to take action about this. I will share my screen. I will put a presentation I have. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's quite extensive. And I want you to get the key pieces of this presentation in terms of the clinical pearls that I would like to share right now with you. And
Great.
And let's go to this. Let me give me 1 second.
I hope that it's going to take over. Oh, good, because there's something. Profil, I don't know what your settings are, but for some reason your settings are taking over the full screen.
Oh, really?
Could you? Yeah. No, not yours. One of our participants, Profil Kumar. So I can see your presentation now, but when you were talking, all I could see was his big black screen.
Oh, really? Well,
okay.
But you can hear me. That's it was not.
I can hear you. I can actually see you over on the right-hand side, and we can see your presentation. So it's great.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's go through this. And again, I'm open to questions. I don't know if you want to leave them at the end, or we want to have this make this more an open conversation. I'm really down for both. I like actually open conversations. So
sure. So we can have people raise their hand. So there's a hand raise at the bottom if you have a question, and we can do that through the queue.
Perfect. So I was mentioning this, actually. This is something this is my quote, actually. I believe firmly in this, that your microbiome can only be as healthy as the terrain your microbes live in. It's impossible to have one thing without the other. If you don't get a healthy microbiome terrain, it's impossible that you're going to get a healthy microbiome to begin with. And everyone that, if somebody here likes science or it's went through some type of laboratory training, if you go to a Petri dish, which is the typical glass plate that we use for growing and culturing microbes, that's the gold standard typically for growing microbes. If you don't put the right settings, you don't grow the things you want to. And so you have to regulate acidity or pH, or you have to regulate temperature. You need to put the right substrate in terms of foods, and all these conditions, when they're right in the settings, they will provide the growth rates that you want for the specific microbes. If something goes off, you might grow something differently. Well, and exactly that's what happens in the gut. If you put the settings of your gut in a different pattern, then you're going to get a different growth of microbes. And one of the most amazing things that you can do for rebalancing your gut is getting those settings back to normal. Now, the complication is what is normal for the gut, because we are all a little bit different, and we all live in different types of conditions, and we all have different diets, and therefore there might be multiple types of normal settings. But we know there are certain standards, and those standards are actually not dictated by what you do. They're actually dictated by what your organs are doing, especially bile flow, stomach acid production, your enzymes, especially pancreatic enzymes, but also the microbiome-related enzymes, and your immune system. So even though you can change other settings like the food you eat or the place you live, even though with those changes, you can still have a certain degree of stability in your microbiome if you have those other areas covered and properly functioning. The problem with toxins is that those toxins are going to disrupt those organs that are related to the production of those things that we need to keep those settings in place. Plus the fact that they damage the microbiome directly. So you have two things working together to make a big mess in terms of your microbiome status. Now, I was mentioning the whole information that we have about the microbiome related to multiple chronic conditions. Well, we already know this. It's all over the place. We know it's related to pretty much every single chronic illness we know in the world. But then parallel to this, you start seeing these things. Well, environmental toxins and heavy metals connected to the same chronic illnesses we relate to microbiome imbalances. So we can see a pattern here. They're not separate. One thing goes along with the other, and they contribute in a synergistic way for imbalancing the whole gut. And that affects the growth rate of your microbes, and that affects the way that you can produce things that you need for being healthy, or to maintain certain conditions for your microbiome to assist you in your life, in your health needs. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about microbiome toxicity, heavy metals, and the gut microbiome. I'm going to go fast in a few areas because it might be a little bit too dense for now. I want to keep it light. Please let me know if you have any questions about any topic of this. But we know that the microbiome is incredibly complex, and that's what I was saying before, that we have a lot of variables in terms of the microbiome conditions. But there's a few things that, as I said before, we can take care of, and those things, they actually take care of multiple other things that will be humanly impossible for us to adjust in a specific way. So we don't have the whole control board in our hands, but we have the control of the master switches, that they will control the rest of the knobs and switches that are related to the most specific areas in terms of balancing the microbiome. And same with probiotics. Probiotics, they put this information, but then the microbiome makes the decision about how we'll take that information and utilize that in one way or the other. So that's the beauty of this, that we have a self-balancing process, even though we don't have the full control of all the aspects of the microbiome regulation. And we know that the microbiome gets damaged by, like I said before, processed foods, sad diet, stress, sedentarism, trauma as well, of course, and high exposure to toxins, high accumulation of toxins, and poor excretion to toxins. Why separate these three? Because If you're a good excreter, for example, and you have a high exposure, you might not get so damaged through the exposure of toxins if you're able to eliminate them properly enough. There's some animals in the animal kingdom that they can swim in mercury and they don't get sick at all because they can eliminate mercury so fast that they just cope with the environmental toxins. And that happens in multiple levels through nature. But for humans, probably, as Martha was saying, we crossed the line where we can actually compensate or cope with these challenges. And now we're seeing the potential damage in all multiple aspects of our life, just because we can't handle this amount of toxins anymore in a daily basis. And that's unfortunately also happening not only for grown-ups, is happening to every single age stage that I've been looking at for the past 3-4 years. I've been doing testings for 5-year-olds and 3-year-olds, and they're loaded with toxins, and that's incredibly sad. Sad to see that the person who has lived in the world for 3 years comes already with a huge burden of toxins being accumulated in the body. What's the potential future of that person in 10, 20 years after? If it has already a tremendous amount of accumulation of toxins in such a short amount of time on his or her life. And again, we're not being told about this problem, and we're not being helped so diligently about how we can take care of these toxins and eliminate them from the body. Now, it's important that microbiome toxicity as a concept has to be embraced. And we know that the xenobiotics are the toxins that are coming from the outside. And then we have endotoxins, which are the ones that are being produced internally. And I'm pretty sure most of you know already that gram negatives, they have these things in the cell walls that are called lipopolysaccharides, and they are quite immune reactive. And to a certain extent, they provide a certain challenge that is actually beneficial for our immune system. But when that balance goes off, then we start getting endotoxemia, and that's probably one of the worst types of toxicity we can get inside the body. But also, external toxins can create an additional amount of damage, and all together can create a huge burden of damage in the gut microbiome. But when we have functional damage, including the way that our bacteria are producing certain metabolites or short-chain fatty acids, etc., or if we're losing our bacterial diversity, meaning that we're getting different patterns of decomposition, beta diversity, or we're getting less amounts of microbes, or we're not able to produce the type of metabolism to harvest the energy and keep the functions properly maintained in our body. That's how we define microbiome toxicity as a concept. And we have a lot of research right now coming showing in different ways and different angles how all these type of toxins, all these xenobiotics are affecting the gut microbiome directly or indirectly. Now, some toxins, they can directly go to the bacteria and they stop specific pathways, or the gene expression gets halted, or they kill microbes directly, and other ones can have a negative impact on the host functionality. And that's what I was saying before. If those toxins are affecting and damaging your liver, your kidneys, your lymphatic system, your immune system, your cells in general, the production of stomach acid, that is going to have a profound implication in the amount of damage that you will get from these toxins into the gut space. So it's really critical that we have to take care of both. We have to take care of the direct aspect in the terms of damage that is created to the microbiome, but also we need to take care of the damage that is being created to the organs that are keeping the balance for your microbiome. So, well, we have a lot of type of toxicity we know already, and this is the one we're talking right now, gut microbiome toxicity. Now, we have different types of toxins, and all these toxins, they can contribute in multiple ways for affecting the microbiome and the organs related to the balance of the microbiome. Heavy metals are one of the most researched type of toxins, just because we know that they're bad for us for longer. So we have already a very clear and established conversation about lead and arsenic and mercury, and so there has been more research about these type of toxins and the relationship with certain areas of our body, including the microbiome. But for environmental toxins, mycotoxins, we don't have too much data. We have some, but we don't have enough yet to prove how bad they are. And actually, that's one of the takeaways for keep using this type of toxins, is that we need more research. And founding privately this type of research is not easy. So I don't know if we have. Give me 1 second. Any questions? No, not yet. Nobody.
Well, I have I don't know if it's a question or just a kind of an update on something that I'm looking at with really a scientist in Australia, and Stephanie and Morley Robbins from the Root Cause Protocol, and Don Huber, who's one of the leading experts on glyphosate. He's a plant pathology expert. He's retired from Purdue, but one of the things, I went and met with him at his farm about a week ago, and we were going over glyphosate, and I had asked him, so glyphosate chelates metals. So it's chelating all those trace metals, but he gave me the chelation constants of the different trace metals. And what we had been talking to the scientists in Australia about is if albumin, which is recycling multiple times a day and is supposed to be carrying trace metals around to the body to where they're supposed to be used, if that glyphosate is actually bound to the metals in the albumin, and it basically can't be used. So, and then another sidebar, which I'll send you, is a metabolomics paper from Peter Dorstein at UC San Diego that came out today, that is talking about all of these other bile acids that nobody was aware of. So they did this massive analysis of bile acids and found, I want to say, like 2,000 more bile acids or something.
Oh wow, it's I will talk a little bit about that, but the challenges right now for the body to keep functioning in the way that we are with all the exposure we have for toxins right now, it's actually now concerning. If we have one single thing that we can point out that is directly related to every single aspect of our health, those are toxins. And yes, we can say that about the microbiome, but the microbiome, what's the main disruptive agent for the microbiome? It for me, it is all the toxins that are around. Like there's absolutely, for me, no doubt about it. And the reason why I'm saying this with such amount of confidence is that we can't explain this in any other way. We can't explain this with the compositional patterns, because we're all different. With environmental patterns, the amount of resilience that a microbiome has will be able to adapt in any of those changes, no matter what. Even with diet, we can go full vegan, full carnivore. The microbiome works either way. Does their work. I'm not a proponent of any of those extreme diets, but probably from an evolutionary standpoint, we were all vegans and we were all carnivore. And now we go and we go out there in the social media and we are like, oh, I'm a full-blown carnivore because you have all these benefits, and then other people go, oh, I'm a full-blown vegan because I get all these benefits. Yeah, sure, because you're looking at the same coin, different sides. You just, because both of those mechanisms were needed, because we were not going to the supermarket to choose what we wanted to eat on any given Sunday. We were eating whatever was available seasonally and by location. So we needed to be both in any given time of the day. We could be 1 week vegan, so we could be another week carnivore if we found an animal to hunt. And we could adapt and process things no matter what. And we can get all the nutrients and everything we needed from those different sources. And now when we look them separately, we see the benefits of both. But it's how they work in conjunction based on our microbiome resilience that we see the beauty of how we can become symbiotic with our environment, because we have that resilience inherited from the microbiome adaptations. And so all this conversation about diets, they're really driving me crazy.
Yeah.
I
Well,
and
I actually, I do have some, I think, good news.
Thank you.
In that, so, we did a clinical trial in diabetes with Sugar Shift last year, and we published the clinical data, which showed statistically significant reduction in serum lipopolysaccharide. So there's one toxin category. But Raul is actually working on our microbiome paper, and there were two. So one thing he called me about this week that he was very excited about is we had a 400-fold increase in something called 4-keto reductase, which is part of this super family of detoxification. So I think those two things right there explain some of how people get benefits from Sugar Shift. But still, I think if we don't fix our larger environment, we're fighting an uphill battle.
No, yeah, well, yeah, that's true. I mean, that's the thing. We have tools and they work. The problem is that the amount of things we're putting on the top of those solutions is way too much. It's way too much. So, but the good thing is the body wants to detoxify all the time. It's something that does all the time naturally. You don't go and start detoxifying on Monday. You're detoxifying all your life. That's to begin with. Now, the problem is that we have a limited capability for detoxification. And also we have different types of bioaccumulation inside the body of those different types of toxins. And even in some, even small amounts can become very disruptive. And that's the reason why we care so much about glyphosate. Glyphosate is transient. It goes away pretty fast from the body. It's water soluble, that's why. But the damage that creates while you're getting exposed to, it's tremendous. So you don't need much to create a transgenerational damage, actually. Not even for you, but for your children and the children of your children. That's well researched. And the same with atrazine, for example, same with BPAs, with plastics. You don't need much, and you get already a huge endocrine disruption. So, yeah. I like, who's it? Give me 1 second. I'm reading. Yeah, there's ways that we can test for toxins. So somebody, Dale. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Dale.
Herzog.
But I barely can pronounce mine. So we're in the same place.
Dale Herzog.
Okay, so assuming budget was no issue, how would someone go about building a state-of-the-art year-round tracking routing for toxins, biomarkers, microbiomes, micronutrients, hormones, etc.? Is there a full state-of-the-art baseline to reference somewhere? There's some reference, of course. There's some testings available. There's no one way we can test this as a whole thing altogether. because the routes of elimination, excretion are different. For the toxins, for example, you need to know the amount of toxins that are going through your urine, but also through your stools, and also through your breath, and also through your skin. And those are only the ones you're actually pushing out, not considering the ones that are not pushing out that you're actually accumulating. So we have what is bioaccumulated, which is your toxicological burden, plus what's going in and out. That altogether gives you a full dimension of what's going on in terms of toxicity in your body. For the microbiome, stool sample analysis is important just because it's the most diverse area of your microbiome, the gut, sorry. But if you look other types of microbiomes, they're also very, very important. The second most diverse microbiome in the body is the mouth. And then you have the skin microbiome, you have other microbiomes, you have so many microbiomes. So put all these different types of information all together and keeping the track of those on a consistent basis, it's actually very hard. And probably you don't want to waste so much time doing that.
Well, and
anyway,
money,
because
I mean, the money
I'm saying money is not an issue. Still, it's a lot of time and dedication for getting tested. But again, the beauty of this is that we can operate on a higher level. Like, for example, Martha is showing more benefits from the sugar shift. And the reason why is because these strains, they have multiple ways for interacting with your microbiome. So there's not only one route of action, it's multiple. So with one microbe alone, you can actually do a lot. And with 5, 10 blended with the certain intention, you can activate probably, correct me if I'm wrong, Martha, but probably thousands, if not more, different physiological pathways that could be related to those pieces of information that are being carried by those microbes. There's some surveillance system they have. And then you also have your major organs. And if you just take care of your liver and your kidneys, that's it. It's going to do major benefit for detoxification purposes alone, those two organs. And there's so many botanicals, there's so many nutraceuticals you can use in combination for getting that done. So I like to see the big picture in all these aspects, because if not, you get overwhelmed. And that's something I don't like, especially when I see my clients.
People can get very fixated on all of the little details. And I say I experienced that myself from the early beginning of looking at John's microbiome. And part of it was a learning process for me, but going through, I don't know what's going on here with Proffles. He keeps being the main. Keep sharing. Share your thing again, Haroldo, because
I will share my thing.
Yeah, because otherwise Proffles' ceiling is going to be on the recording.
Okay, let's go with mine. Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
But getting fixated on looking at every single strain of bacteria and what it could be doing. Now, it was a very helpful learning process, but I have really come to this conclusion of it's the terrain, and we have to rebuild the terrain and stop polluting it. But we also have to come together and stop polluting the outside. I did a talk back in 2019, and there's a little clip from a promotional video for it. And one of the things I was talking about was just antibiotics and the overuse of antibiotics in animal husbandry. And, people are like, oh, well, it's just a little bit here, or I'm just taking a little bit there. But it's like, it's not out there. It's actually in here. And so everything you're doing out there is in here. And so, we have to be more mindful about all the choices that we're making and all the things that we're doing, and addressing it on a larger scale. I guess I see you had an antimicrobial.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only way we can win. Because again, there's a lot of people trying to go very specific in their approach. The microbiome is way too complex to find all the algorithms that will be needed to understand to work in a specific way. We need to trust natural pathways. We need to trust our body's pathways. What we can do, and this is the best recommendation I can give, improve your own body's mechanisms. Do not try to biohack your body. I don't like the term, actually. A lot of people use it because it's kind of like trying to outsmart your body. You can't. It's impossible. You need to be just humble enough to understand that your body is perfect as it is. And if you have something imbalanced, you need to improve the pathway that is related, or the pathways are related to those imbalances. And that is by supporting your body's um, um, support mechanisms, the rebalancing mechanisms, the natural ones we have, and that they rely basically in your fluids. This is it's all about what is flowing in your body. If you take care of your blood flow, if you take care of your oxygen transportation, you're taking care of your production of stomach acid, you're taking care of your bile, you're taking care of the drainage of your kidneys, etc. Those things are going to help you tremendously. You don't need to go that specific to make the improvements you want to achieve. Um, so going back to the toxins, we have the heavy metals. They have an antimicrobial activity, and they can produce a lot of damaging molecules that can affect the mechanisms for the bacteria to grow and produce the things that they're needing to survive. And that mainly impacts the enzyme activity, the protein production, expression. They also affect the cytoplasm and the membranes. So they damage those components and they get killed because of that, or they get dysfunctional. They also affect the way that the bacteria are getting their nutrients. So they starve the bacteria to death. And then the genes that they're carried, they also get affected. And I'm always wondering how much of this damage is being passed in terms of genotoxicity to the future generations.
Well, there's actually a really interesting study from Oregon State, I think. I'll send it to you.
Yes.
Where they showed the impact of antibiotics on mitochondrial gene expression, and what was called the resistome, or the antibiotic resistant bacteria that were left behind, and what their impact on mitochondrial gene expression was. And actually, the impact of the antibiotic resistant bacteria left behind had an even greater impact on mitochondrial gene expression. And what was interesting to me, I started thinking about it because the microbes that are resistant to the antibiotics are the antibiotic producers themselves. Most antibiotics are actually fermented by bacteria. So what you're doing is you're selecting for an ecosystem that is then producing endogenous toxins.
Yeah, we're setting up the conditions to the wrong direction, because we are creating the need from those bacteria as well. So we're creating the challenge, they respond, and then we suffer because they predict what could potentially happen afterwards. Yeah, and that's so bad right now, because I will tell you something right away. If I was following like straightforward all the recommendations in terms of antibiotics in my life, probably I would already got like probably 30 courses of antibiotics over like the last 20 years. If I listened to every person that said to me that I needed antibiotics, none of those times, probably one out of those 30 was actually needed. And so we see that they are being recommended in massive ways, and not all the time they're actually that needed, and that creates a tremendous amount of damage to the microbiome, to our organs. Remember that the mitochondria, it's just a different type of bacteria that was incorporated in our cells from probably 1,000 years ago, and that suffers a lot. Every time that there's a course of antibiotics, you will kill mitochondria by a lot, and that will lower the ability for your metabolic needs to be sustained in your body. So you will produce, and guess what are the organs which they have more mitochondria per cells? Well, heart, liver, stomach, brain. They're the most demanding organs in our body. And all of them all together, they regulate all the functions that we're seeing now. They're getting dysfunctional. So it's not a coincidence, again, that all these toxicological burden we're providing to our bodies are creating all the damage that we see later on. And because sometimes we can't trace back, because they take a while to hit as a symptom or as a condition, then we can't say, oh, it was this. But it's just the accumulation over the years in a low-grade way, and sometimes in not so low, in a very, very intense way, that creates the problems 5-10 years after.
That's actually, one of the things we have scheduled to talk about, but we haven't really talked about yet with this group, is sort of building your life timeline. Or maybe we did talk about it. I can't lose track. But that was one of the things I did with John, was build his life timeline. And there were even signs when he was a baby that he was carrying a heavy toxin load. And he grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, when the river caught on fire. So a very toxic environment in Cleveland where he was growing up. And then he worked in the oil and gas industry. He worked on a golf course, so he was exposed to herbicides. And I think people don't connect those things because they haven't really mapped out their life story.
Yeah, no, definitely we don't see the big picture, because we normalize a lot of these things as well, and so we think they're actually part of our normal life. They shouldn't. They are right now, but they shouldn't. Look at the water quality. Just go to EWG and water database and put your zip code there and see what's going on. And it's scary, to say the least, the amount of toxins you can see in your tap water that it's labeled as
safe to drink.
Safe to drink. So I will say for now, we need to take care of the basics, and I will talk about that in a little bit later. But filtering your water and filtering your air, there are things that we really need. Morgan, oh, sorry, that's your last name, or no? Okay.
Who knows? Right now I'm so depressed I don't even want a last name.
Oh, I got news at the end. I always bring you news, but I need to bring the awareness first. So sorry, but I leave the best for the last.
Oh, is there a pep? So there will be a pep part to the peppy talk, because right now I'm ready to move to Pluto. But my question for you, Dr. Haroldo, is this: is there any such thing as a healthy person today in 2024? Are you healthy, or do you know of people who are actually healthy, or are we just in various stages of unhealth?
So for me, let's define what is healthy. For me, being healthy, and not for me, I mean, I'm quoting people who have been saying this many times. Health for me is about balance. It's about having our performance, our bodies, our physiological optimal, and then having all these challenges coming from the outside and sometimes from the inside, and being able to stay on a balanced state. That's for me what is called health. It's not about the whole absence of disease or the absence of challenges, and that includes toxins and many other things that we can get exposed to. It is the way that we can build ourselves to become resilient to those challenges, so we can stay in a certain degree of balance. And there's a beautiful analogy, but about trees, when you see them getting bent all over with winds and storms and going through all the seasons, and they still grow and they stay there in the same place with heavy, solid roots. They suffer a lot of challenges, but they can keep growing and building themselves as stronger and stronger over the years. I think that we're supposed to follow that path. Now, the problem is that our own mechanisms are being right now compromised because there's so much out there that is becoming a challenge. So in a way, there's some people that they can stay in balance yet. Yes, I believe so. There's some people that they can be considered healthy. But that is easy, and it's not. For the common, for all of us, and I consider myself also a person who is consistently challenged by all these aspects, and it's hard sometimes to keep this balance in place. And that same happened for the microbiome. You're not separated from your microbiome, as well as you're not separated from your environment. So at the end of the day, your environment, your own physiology, and everything that lives in and over you, it dictates at the end of the day your overall resilience. We live in conjunction. We live in symbiosis with everything. It's hard, and I get it. There's some solutions, because we know that the same challenges can provide the input that our body needs for getting better, optimizing pathways. So when you talk about turmeric, for example, when you talk about some other molecules that we use typically on like, for example, bitters, what they're doing is actually they're pinching a little bit these stress pathways to activate the mechanisms for coping with the challenges. Make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And what you said about resilience and balance and the whole tree thing, that makes sense to me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Jennifer, you raise your hand.
Hi, yes, hi. So Martha might have just answered my question actually in the chat. But I'm always looking for, I'm a nutrition coach, and I work under the Sugar Shift umbrella, and also with Dr. Davis and some other areas. And, and I'm always trying to help clients quantify their health without having to chase down their labs. Because I think, like you referenced earlier, that's, expensive and not maybe the best way to go. And so pH is interesting. I should probably try to incorporate more of that. And we talk a lot about fingerstick blood glucose testing here and CGMs. And then I'm a big fan of HRV as just kind of a broad measurement of health. And I just wanted to ask your opinion of that. When you look at the big picture of health, does that ring true as does that tell you the status of your overall health?
Well, it does, but again, those are still specific markers. I like HRV as well. I think it's a good overall marker of resilience in the body. pH is tricky. I like it, but it's tricky because varies a lot. It shouldn't be stable by any means, by the way. The only place that you have to have a stable pH is blood. Blood can move. Like the needle on the pH levels in the blood can move. If you move just 0.1 in the blood, you're dead. That's it. There's no other option. You have the normal pH, or you're not in this world anymore, because it's not doesn't have any room for variation. And besides that, anything else in the body can become acidic or alkaline depending on the needs. And There are some places in the body we need them to be acidic. And there are some places in the body we need them to be more alkaline or neutral. And we need some places to be changing consistently. So the problem with pH when we measure pH is when, how, and for what we're trying to analyze. I'm trying to analyze how much my pH in the mouth drops when I'm eating. Well, that's one variable. Then, or what is my baseline pH when I'm not eating? And that will change if I'm a mouth breather or not. And it will change also with the air humidity, and it will change with other factors. My amount of saliva that I'm secreting on a daily basis, that also has a relationship with other pathways. And so there's a multiple types of angles we can look at each compartment of the body. So what I'm trying to say at the end of this little deep breakdown of all these different ways of testing, for example, one area of the body with pH analysis, is that it gets too complex because the body changes all the time, adapts all the time. And so the best way for me, it's unless you're going is doing it as a set of doing a time frame of a timeline of the measurements. That's the only way you can understand how this is moving through time and understand your own waves of changes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those waves can be also different from one person to another. And that's what we use statistics for. So, yeah.
Well, the reason why I put pH in there as a
I'm not saying
response.
it's not.
Yeah, I mean it's a challenge, but with bacterial fermentation and which bacteria grow or don't grow, pH is one of the main drivers of different types of microbes. Will grow at different pHs and different temperatures and all of that. But I also, as I looked at this like metabolic component of Parkinson's with John, we can tell sometimes when things are not working well for him that he is in some form of metabolic acidosis.
Yeah. No, if you do a timeline, I think
Yeah.
if you do a timeline and you understand also what's going on in terms of your diet or your specific features, and again, if you're a mouth breather, that's going to change completely the equation. Or if you have some mercury fillings, that can also affect the equation as well. So knowing those variables, what makes you unique, and having a timeline done on the testing, that's when you get the actual useful information for analyzing someone. If not, what happens is that you're getting a snapshot, and maybe that's not the best day for analyzing. And that happens, a lot, like every single day by millions, when we do a blood work.
Right.
We go fasting first time in the morning. Some people, they never fast. And they just for that day alone, they go and they do the little fasting for going and get their blood drawn to get this analysis, and they check that snapshot and they make conclusions out of that one single time on a very single day of your life that was most of the times not even the most typical day of your life. And we make deductions and we apply things on the top of that for recommendations, and that's actually I don't think that that's a really good way for doing this. But if we have a week of testing, which seems like crazy, but probably that's the best way, or a month testing, or consecutive testings over time, then we can understand how this goes in the
bigger
curve.
picture. So maybe for our big data guy, that's
Get the bone, honey. Always the
but
bone.
It's all about money.
Profil's got a question.
Yes, please.
Profil, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Good. Yeah, since you talked about mouth breathers, I can understand
Mouth.
about the ozone. So I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you a question about the ozone. What's your take on ozone? Do you think the people who are doing the ozone, it's helping the microbiome or not?
Well, it's it's
It's
let me
complicated.
it's complicated, but let's put it this way. In just in a general way, ozone is an antimicrobial. That's it. Ozone will break cell walls in bacteria. Now, it is also a stimulant of your own cells for producing certain molecules, and also can increase repairing rates in certain tissues, and has other benefits. Can also doesn't create, as far as we know, it doesn't create resistance, antibiotic resistance over time. So we can use that as needed in certain moments, um, when we have the need of reprogramming or rebalancing the microbiome in certain areas of the body, conducting, of course, a proper treatment plan, not only using ozone. If you just dump ozone in any place of your body, that
Get things.
relies on the microbiome, actually it's not going to really help. Now, if you do an ozone treatment and then you do a replenishment treatment, and also take care of the inflammatory aspects of whatever is aggravating that specific terrain, then we have something comprehensive where ozone can become a very good ally in improving what you're trying to improve. And I've been using ozone, rectal ozone insufflation in the past with a lot of success, especially with chronic inflammatory conditions like, for example, diverticulosis or diverticulitis, and it helps a lot. Actually, we have a very big remission in the symptoms and in the status of those conditions. But again, the ozone was never used alone as ozone, pure simple. So unfortunately, we don't have these simple solutions that can be applied and it will be magically fixing everything. But it can become a good tool in conjunction with a comprehensive protocol. That's what I can tell you about ozone. In the mouth, by the way, you use ozone in certain areas, in certain procedures, and it helps a lot. But you can't really put ozone in the mouth because you will breathe it, and it's highly oxidative, and if a person can even get killed by the exposure to ozone if you breathe ozone without being broken down. And so most of the times when you use direct inoculation in the air passages of ozone, you use a broken down ozone that is converted into hydrogen peroxide, and that's where you get the antimicrobial activity.
How about,
So then
the
I
blood
think
ozone? I'm sorry.
we
sorry.
also have, oh, go ahead.
How about, ozonating the blood?
Well, that's again, it's a totally different approach, and that again depends on your health needs. There's some conditions that can get improved by using IV ozone, but if you ask me, is this for everyone? That everyone should be doing this on a regular basis? I don't think so. I think the circulation, it is very filtered system for a reason. And if we start poking our veins to try to bring things in on a regular basis, we're actually disrupting the normal mechanisms that things are supposed to be incorporated in our blood circulation. But maybe one person in a very specific time, on a very specific type of condition, it might get benefit from doing IV ozone therapy. And I've seen that actually, so I can say that's true, but it has to be analyzed on an individual basis, not just a general recommendation.
Okay,
Okay.
one more question. Can I have one more question? Or no?
Sure.
Only one. No, I'm joking.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm doing as per Dr. Davis's way. I'm doing the SIBO yogurt, which
Okay.
is reuteri and those three different microbes. And I also started the sugar sift yogurt as well, just about a couple of days back. what I've noticed that when I was doing the SIBO yogurt only, I was sleeping good. But when I started the sugar shift, I was awake. So is there anything now? The people who were taking the SIBO yogurt as well as the sugar shift yogurt, there was no effect at all. But the people who did not have diabetes, they were awake. Is there any kind of a connection?
I can't really say that, talk about that
So
directly.
what time are you eating the sugar shift yogurt?
I'm sorry.
What time of day are you eating the sugar shift yogurt?
About the same time with the SIBO.
But what
And,
time of day? Do you
that's
eat it in the
evening.
morning or the evening?
In the evening, just before the dinner.
Okay. Well, one of the things I would say is sugar shift does increase energy production. And then it also has, it's converting sugars to mannitol, which has diuretic properties. So if you're taking it in the evening, because that's a higher count when you do the yogurt, I would probably take the sugar shift yogurt in the morning and not the evening, because you're going to get that energy boost, and you're also going to get the increased excretion of fluids that's going to wake you up or maybe not have you be quite as restful.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you so much.
Then I think it's is it Paula? It says Toby, but it's Paula.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Gosh, it's every single time when I have to ask a question, they start barking. Let me move very quickly in the room. I'm sorry. Hey, doctor, you are a dentist, correct?
I am a dentist.
All right. Wonderful. So I have a couple of questions about this matter. So first of all, about the ozone, the dentist actually, don't get it in here, okay, gave me ozone in some type of oil, you can, like a butter or something, so you can clean between your teeth. So I do this from time to time when I remember. Is that advisable?
Well, again, this is all about what you need. But I will say this as a general thought. Your microbiome in the mouth produces a lot of things you need for your metabolic needs. And I've been speaking a lot about nitric oxide. This is one of big molecules that are we make partially, at least, on the mouth microbiome. And so your nitrates, when you eat food that is containing in nitrates, they go to your stomach and they go and recirculate back into your salivary glands. So you're actually never using those nitrates right away. They go back to your salivary glands and they get flushed there. So your mouth microbiome can convert nitrates into nitrites. And that's the reduced form of nitrites. Then later, when you swallow them, they get converted into nitric oxide, which is a molecule we need for so many different things, essential for life. And if you lower the amount of microbes in the mouth intentionally, you will lower your capabilities of producing nitric oxide.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So,
Make beat kvass. That will help.
Make kvass, you said? Is this what you said?
Make beat kvass. I have a new jar going right now.
Okay. Also, when they had to extract one of my tooth because it was irritating, etc., they applied the ozone on the bone, etc., and then they gave me this Trom X.
Okay.
Are you familiar with it? Basically, it has L-reuteri as a main. Does it? Or I'm mistaken? Actually, they use a lot of L-reuteri, the BioGaio, the green one, which is for dentists. And so this one, well, this one has 3,000 things inside. Uh, I realize now. Basically for pain, maybe because it's turmeric and grapes, some type of cherries. I something that will heal.
Your I don't really know that product, so I can't really speak
It,
intelligently.
it has a lot of good stuff into it. And maybe they gave me this for pain after the surgery. I'm not sure. I didn't.
Yeah, he
If you're-
probably can't. If he
I
doesn't know
never
the
use it.
product, he's not going to be
Yeah.
able to
If-
comment on it.
Oh, okay.
if you're taking something and you don't know for what, yeah, I should definitely call the person who gave it to you and see if you need it still.
If you
Has
still
a lot
need
of
it.
good stuff. Has a lot. Yeah. Okay. The main question: do you use this saliva test in the mouth
For
that
what?
to realize how do you have a damaging bacteria in the mouth? I believe there were 4 or 5 of the bacteria that they check. And
Fusobacteria nucleatum is one of them, I think. Yeah.
yeah, I have to double check 5 of them. So
Mhm.
do you do this test, and is it worth doing it? I believe 2 or 3 were off at the time, but I was with infection in the mouth, so I can understand this. But what do you think about this test?
So I will tell you what I think about oral microbiome testing today. If
Mhm.
you're analyzing your saliva and you're trying to correlate the microbiome of the saliva to the whole microbiome of the mouth, that is super narrow-sighted. If you analyze the microbiome of the saliva, what you're looking at is the microbiome of the saliva. That's it, period. When we do research about the different niches in the microbiome of the mouth, every single niche has a different type of composition. So you can grab saliva and say that that's representing your whole mouth. And for that reason, I take with a lot of discretion the information provided by those salivary oral microbiome analysis, because they're not giving you a full reflection of your oral microbiome in a complete way. It's just a portion of that.
So what
And
test will be that you can get all the picture?
doesn't
There is
accept doesn't accept.
Why I'm not surprised. Yeah.
And
Okay,
Bristol,
got it.
Bristol doesn't do more than saliva, by the way. That's only saliva. They do a full metagenomic analysis, which is a little bit better than getting a few strains only analyzed, but
Yeah.
still salivary analysis. And again, there's a lot of flaws in just doing that alone. It is all about the sample. I can grab the microbiome of the, I will say something probably super silly, but just to make my point, you can grab the microbiome of my cheeks and think that that's going to correlate to my knees in the skin. It might have something to do, but they get exposed to different things. They have different environmental challenges. In the mouth, you have the crevicular fluid coming in between your gums and your teeth. That changes completely the amount of foods that is available for your microbiome. Then you have the dorsum of the tongue. You have the ventral part of your tongue. You have the cheeks, the inner cheeks, that they get rubbed and scrubbed
Yeah.
with your teeth. So every single niche that you can see in your mouth has different types of challenges, different types of oxygen, different types of nutrients, different types of pH. So we can say those microbes in the saliva represent the whole microbiome of the mouth. And if you give recommendations just based your analysis on that specific part of your oral microbiome, you might be completely wrong.
Completely wrong. Gotcha. So as a dentist, when the patient comes, what is your suggestion for keeping your teeth on place and be healthy in the mouth?
So your mouth correlates to the status of your gut, because as I
They're
mentioned,
connected. Yeah.
The only way you can sustain a proper nutrition to your mouth microbiome is by absorbing pre-digested nutrients from your foods that they will come back to your salivary glands. That's how your microbiome in the mouth gets fed. That's why we have a stability in your mouth microbiome. Imagine if we just get the foods that we're chewing. Some people don't chew at all, first of all. We're just getting random distribution of foods on a very uneven way, and it will not sustain a normal, stable growth pattern of your our oral microbiome. But because we have this recirculation of nutrients, is that we can keep this stable patterns of the microbiome composition in the mouth. So with that being said, you need the proper absorption of nutrients, meaning you need to have a good, healthy diet, and also you need to have a good absorption, a good efficiency in your digestion. And going back to the toxicological conversation, one of the things that blocks the enzymatic pathways, your liver pathways, your anything that is needed for breaking down foods and absorbing them properly, those are toxins. Toxins are going to disrupt your digestive efficiency a lot. So you need a good, healthy microbiome and good functioning organs on the digestive part for getting your foods back to your mouth. Probably there's no single person with mouth problems that doesn't have this biotic gut.
Right. I agree. Okay. Thank you so much. You were very helpful. Thank you.
My pleasure. So I think we have someone. Yeah, we have 3 people more raising hand. Martha, are you okay? We can just do this a conversation. It will be possible for me to finish the presentation anyway.
Sure. Let's do these 2 questions, and then if you have a couple of highlights you want to hit,
I will do a brief conversation of what I would like you most
the
everyone,
key takeaways. Yeah.
the key takeaways.
Debbie?
Oh, hi there. So first of all, I'll just comment quickly, Martha. I can't take sugar shift after 12 o'clock noon, or it keeps me awake. And I'm the same way with caffeine. So he just needs to take it, first thing in the morning. But then my question for the doctor is, so is there any benefit in terms of detoxification of donating blood? I give blood on a regular basis, and I always feel like I'm I'm getting rid of some bad stuff and then my body's regenerating new. Is that true, or am I just donating blood?
You're just donating blood.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Toxins in the bloodstream, they don't stay for too long. So if you get a 24-hour accumulation in that time frame, most probably all these toxins are going to go to either inside your cells, or they're going to go and get binded by, especially with fatty tissues, brain, and other areas of your body, or they're going to go to the liver, and they're going to get dumped in your gut at the end of the day. Some of them will be eliminated, but the amount of toxins that can get circulating in your blood, then they will remain in your blood. It's not that high. They usually go to somewhere else. Now, in college,
can I interject for just one? Is that iron? What you're getting rid of is iron, and iron feeds pathogens, and there are a lot of diseases associated with iron overload, and so the blood donation is likely addressing the excess iron, because there's a lot of excess iron added to our food and not in a good form. And then glyphosate actually binds Fe2, but not Fe3. So that contributes to the problem with the iron that we have. Sorry, I had to.
Okay.
actually,
So I do get rid of some toxins if they're bound to iron, then, correct, Martha?
Well, it's the iron that's coming out of the blood, because if it's a whole blood donation.
Correct.
I haven't really looked at, I mean, you may have toxins bound to the albumin or in your plasma. You may have toxins bound in the plasma. So, and I don't,
Okay.
a plasma donation is something different, but if you're giving whole blood, you are giving some plasma. So I don't know, you might
Okay.
get a lower level, but like Geraldo says, that's not where most of them are.
No,
Okay.
I wish it was so simple. Yeah, and actually, when they do IV chelation therapies, they don't really go really after a lot of these accumulation of toxins that we can have in the body. Now, again, blood, it's a vehicle.
Mhm.
Now, you can have toxins included in your red blood cells inside, and they have a 90-day cycle. They get eliminated. So, and then you will have new ones. So you're always replenishing your blood anyway on a 90-day basis. And so your detoxification pathways are always operating through those through that blood flow anyway. But the most important part is that, let's assume for a minute you have a high burden of toxins in your bloodstream. Assume that I take a snapshot of your blood and you have a lot of toxins there. Again, eventually they're going to go somewhere, either accumulated or excreted. The question is why you're getting that passage of toxins into your bloodstream in the first place. So for me, my biggest question is not how I get rid of these toxins, it's where these toxins are coming from. Because that's the first question. Why I have these guys in the first place in my body? They're not naturally occurring on my body.
Right. So I do have one big filling in the back of my mouth that's mercury that I can't, that I don't want to have taken out for fear it's going to go to a crown, and then, someone will want to give me a root canal. And so I just thought that might help. And then does vitamin C help detoxify at all?
Vitamin C is critical for detoxification, yes.
Okay.
Many aspects, but it's not a detoxification agent by itself. It has many properties and definitely helps for kidney function, for liver function, especially kidney, I will say. It's needed for metabolic pathways in terms of producing detoxification molecules in the liver. And also it is a great protective agent for immune cells, which are also getting involved in the detoxification process. But as a standalone thing, it's not really a detoxification agent by itself. It's a supporting nutrient for detoxification in the body.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Brenda?
Oh, yes. Hi.
Hi, Brenda.
I recently had an aortic valve replacement, and now for dental cleaning, I need to take amoxicillin a half an hour before each cleaning. And I wondered what I should do in addition to counteract the effects of the amoxicillin, which I apparently have to take.
I think, Martha, that's a good question for you.
Yeah. Well, we have a product that we designed for taking after you take antibiotics. So
Right, I have that antibiotic resist, or is that what it's called?
antibiotic antidote. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got. How many should I take and for how long?
I mean, we typically recommend that people take it for 2 weeks to a month after the antibiotic, and depending on how much antibiotic exposure. I have some people who were on IV antibiotics for quite some time who take it much longer. But the antibiotic antidote, we recommend just 1 capsule a day. I do have some people who take more than that after they've had the IV antibiotics.
Okay, I think it's 4 capsules a half an hour before. cleaning.
That
and that's
moxicillin? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you would probably be, I think, okay taking it for a couple of weeks after.
okay. Or just one tablet a day, you think?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, the with antibiotics, they're pretty damaging for the liver, and I always recommend to do in addition to the probiotics, a liver protocol. I use something that I like. Looking for comprehensive solutions. I like a product from Quicksilver Scientifics actually that's called liver sauce, because they have a lot of nutrients there. They're actually upregulating pathways in the liver to fluidify the bile and to expedite the bile production and stimulate the hepatocyte for normal functioning, and
Liver
especially
sauce.
yeah,
Oh,
that's
liver
oh, you have
sauce.
it here. Oh, Martha, you were so prepared. Oh.
Is it
Do we call
liver
it
sauce? Is that it?
liver sauce? Yes, like
Okay, thank you.
spaghetti sauce. It's a funny name, but it's a great product. And the good thing is that you have a lot of upregulating agents there for NRF2. NRF2 is a transcriptional molecule for in activating your antioxidant response elements, which are your natural antioxidants in your body. And so when you upregulate those that production, you can actually when you activate NRF2 is when you get the antioxidant formation from your own antioxidant pathways. And remember always that oxidative stress and inflammation are huge blockers from promoting bile flow. And if you don't make the bile flowing in the right direction, you get cholestasis, and cholestasis will bring toxins back to circulation, going back to the previous question. And that's what you don't want, because if it goes back to circulation, you're distributing those toxins all over your body, which equals to chronic inflammation.
So you should take Quicksilver liver sauce along with the antibiotics, or later, or does it matter?
No, I think it's a recovery protocol for me. I think that if you already used antibiotics and you're trying to recover your microbiome, you can use the antibiotic recovery probiotic that Martha mentioned, but also you can use in conjunction something to support your liver function, to get rid of all these toxic elements you're going to be accumulating, or you're going to get enhanced because of the damage that is created to your hepatocyte function through the action of the antibiotics.
Okay, thank you.
And then Dr. Haroldo, just to clarify with that, if someone wants to take the liver sauce to enhance their detox efforts, should they also be taking the binder afterwards and do sort of that push-pull?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, that in normal conditions, just for promoting better bile flow, liver sauce can be used as a standalone. But in the risk of having too much toxins getting dumped out of the bile duct and into the gut, that can pose a risk. And if you don't have the proper binding agents for eliminating those toxins, you're going to have an increased amount of toxins circulating back into your body through the secondary bile acids reabsorption, and that's, or maybe because you have leaky gut in the first place and you have all these toxins now leaking into your circulatory system. That's definitely not in a scenario you want to be in. So the binders can prevent that from occurring. So that's where, well, there's a protocol that Dr. Che developed that's called push catch, and that's the reason is because he says pushing the toxins, but also binding them and catching them through the binder usage. That's a very simplistic way of taking care of general toxins. But also we have to be aware that could be more pieces into that equation. So it's a good protocol as a general support, but there's a lot of people around that they need way more than that in terms of support to make these things work.
Yeah.
It's a multi-stage mechanism, and it starts with your vagus nerve, actually. So it is complex, but it's a good product. I like it a lot, and their binder also is really good. Melody?
Melody? Yeah.
And to unmute myself. Um, so I know for a fact that I have a lot of problems with detox, and I think I was doing pretty well last fall. I was doing some infrared saunas and beginning to sweat just a little bit, and I was doing some microcurrent stuff that was very helpful for detox. And so I was taking binders. I have mycotoxins and I also have parasites. So I got a lot of junk. But I had some illness during the winter for like 3 months straight and couldn't do much of anything. And I stopped. I could tell that I was just really getting puffy and, things weren't moving at all. So I feel like I'm kind of starting over again, trying to get my detoxification systems working. And unfortunately, the only sweating I can do is going into a sauna because I've really bad arthritis and I have too much pain to be able to work out to sweat.
Mhm.
So my question is, do you have, other than what I'm already doing, the liver sauce sounds pretty interesting, but I'm looking for anything to help me get my ability to detox normalized so that I'm traveling all over the city trying to do all these crazy treatments, and it's quite challenging.
Let me share a couple of thoughts. First of all, some people don't sweat that much. We don't always use the same pathways for elimination of toxins. So maybe you're not a good skin excreter, but that doesn't mean that you're not excreting toxins in other ways. So it's just like having a student that is great at math and horrible in art and trying to make it work better in art. Try to make you better in what you already you're good at, not trying to make something better from what you're not really good at in terms of elimination. If you're more stagnant in your skin pathways, but maybe you're functioning much better because you have good digestion, good bowel movements, and you can excrete toxins through your stools, for example, use that pathway more. And then maybe binders can be helpful, and maybe that the ingredients in the liver sauce can be beneficial, and maybe improving your kidney function also, it helps a lot using certain nutraceuticals for that purpose. So there's a lot of things you can play in the mix for improving maybe the urine excretion or the stool excretion of toxins, and not forcing a pathway that is not really operating properly. Maybe over time that will become better. But I like to use the low-hanging fruit first before trying to go against the grain and finding the one that is not really working that much for my needs, because we can detoxify in so many ways. And trust me, your body's detoxifying. Maybe you're not that great, and I don't know, maybe that's a possibility because of multiple factors that you have been exposed to for all the years of your life. And you won't be able to correct that right away. It's not going to be that fast. And there's not really a fast solution for improving detoxification anyway. Detoxification is a marathon, not a sprint. You have to do this on a regular basis, day by day, little by little, and you will get better over time. And I've seen that happening even with simple solutions like fasting or lemon juice water in the morning. Things that they seem so silly, but they do help for improving the functioning of the organs that are related to detoxification. So my recommendation will be, you can still try the saunas, but work in the area that you feel that you're stronger, because that's how you're gonna support everything else that needs to be improved later on. That's what I do. That's my logical way of doing things.
So I had quite a bit of weakness, I think, with my liver because I have fatty liver, and I evidently have a genetic need for massive amounts of choline, like impossible to ingest on a daily basis. So I know that's hurt me since I've been in menopause, and my liver's just enormous. But so far, my enzymes, on testing have always seemed okay. But I feel like, with the parasites, my bile function, my pancreatic, the lipase was so messed up for over a year. And it's better now, but it's not, I can't seem to get rid of the giardia, and it's not 100%. So I don't feel like that pathway is great. So, but I didn't know there was things you could do for kidney to help with kidney excretion.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's a lot of things that you can use in conjunction for improving liver function, kidney function. Most of them botanicals, and they work amazingly well. They have certain diuretic functions. Again, if we're going to, if I can mention one from the same company, just to simplify the recommendations, they have something that's called Kidney Care that has good properties for detoxification of the kidneys. But also, there's a couple of other things about the kidneys. First of all, hydration. And hydration is not about the amount of water, it's the amount of living water you're getting. And that means that you have to have the amount of electrolytes that are needed to create that hydration process beyond the amount of water that you're putting in your body. The other thing is timing. When we eat sometimes too late, and that halts the detoxification process in your body that occurs at night. So probably when we're doing an intermittent fasting, or if we're not doing anything at all, but which is just following a certain schedule with our meals, we should be avoiding eating too late. I will say that the last meal of the day should be not later than 6 p.m. because that gives you a good amount of time for detoxifying at night and not going to bed with an empty stomach, with a full stomach and a very overwhelmed digestive system. And don't skip breakfast. You need breakfast. The hormones, well, progesterone actually helps with bile flow. So if is one of those things that actually helps a lot with detoxification. So if you check your hormones and you have low progesterone, maybe something you want to look a little bit deeper.
Thank you very much. I do take progesterone, but I probably need to be tested and make sure I'm taking the right amount.
Yeah, I'm running short of time, and I know there's a lot of questions. I'm loving this conversation. I've had a lot of things that I wanted to share with you in terms of my presentation, but I can't care less about that as long as this is useful for all of you. That's the most important part.
Well, I think it would be good for you to circle back to your key points that you wanted to make, and let's do that, and then we can come back to the questions. And if you need to go, I can take some questions and send them to you and follow up with people later.
Yeah, I do have a few more minutes. So I have to jump in like 10 minutes more. I have to jump out. So let's see how much we can do. But I will skip all this. And this is something that, and also I can give it to you. You can download, and it's fine. And
There's hydrogen sulfide.
This is one thing that I wanted to share with you. So there's this whole conversation about SIBO and hydrogen sulfide, and everyone's getting super aggravated about the hydrogen sulfide levels. Hydrogen sulfide, it is a molecule that is used by bacteria to scavenge out of your body toxins. So sometimes, because we are like that, humans, we're like super linear sometimes to look at things. If we see hydrogen sulfide and the negative effects of hydrogen sulfide, which it is also pretty inflammatory and can create a lot of damage to the colonocytes, and it can halt metabolic pathways there. So we agree that that's not a good thing for sure. But on the other hand, maybe that metabolite is being produced in larger amounts with all the downsides of it, just because the microbiome is sensing higher levels of toxins and is trying to get rid of them. So in a way, hydrogen sulfide can be our ally, not only our negative thing in our body. So yes, inflammation coming from hydrogen sulfide production, exogenous production in the colonocyte is real, and even with Fuchsiobacterium nucleatum in the mix, it can turn into neoplasia. That's what we know. But also we know that hydrogen sulfide can become a very good scavenger of heavy metals for taking care of hypertoxicity in the gut. So when you have high levels of hydrogen sulfide, maybe think about having high amounts of hydrogen of heavy metals circulating. And that's maybe the reason why you can't get rid of these high levels of hydrogen sulfide and all the inflammation related to it. Is because you're not detoxifying those metals out of your body properly. So that's one thing I want you to have in mind, that not all these byproducts are bad per se. That they're being produced because the microbiome is trying to take care of things that we need to reduce other elements that can be damaging for us. I will pass BPA, but BPA is incredibly damaging for the microbiome. So it's one of those things that you don't want to get exposed to, but alternatives to BPA, and then these plastic bottles that they say BPA free, they're worse, not better. So don't get them. Use glass or ceramic or something that doesn't have BPAs in the first place. You don't want the BPAs, but you don't want the BPA alternatives. Those are terrible for you. So that's another thing I want you to keep. And Martha has spoken so much about the glyphosate and the pesticides in general that I'm not going to repeat the information or talk about this again here, but definitely they're horrible. And remember that the glyphosate is water soluble, so go through air humidity, goes through a wide range of pathways. And so if you're not using that directly, but your neighbor is spraying Roundup in his garden, you're going to get it anyway. Or if you live close to a golf course or a farm, anything that can expose you to glyphosate. Mycotoxins, one thing I want to say only about this is that they do have a very important effect on your digestive system. They block a lot of your detoxification pathways. So if you have mycotoxins elevated in your body, then you will not be able to digest and detoxify both at the same time properly. So your microbiome will suffer just by an indirect pathway of the presence of mycotoxins. Endotoxins is a very big topic, but this is something I wanted to show. And this slide that I stole from Dr. Chris Shade, it's a really nice one, but also he took it from a paper, so I don't think I'm a thief so much. This is what we don't want. We don't want something that affects the bile flow from the blood passage of toxins into the hepatocyte, and then the way that these toxins are getting conjugated and dumped into the bile canicles. If you get this process reversed, that's when inflammation gets triggered. And endotoxemia is one of the worst things you can have for creating cholestasis. But also, as I was mentioning before, high levels of estrogen, medications, especially antibiotics and NSAIDs, and anything that can relate to hepatic disease, including these biotic microbiomes, they can affect the proper functioning of your hepatocyte. And of course, that will impede the proper elimination through the liver or through the urine, and it's going to go back to circulation through the transportation of toxins through the blood, and it's going to trigger all these different type of damage in organs around the body. Now, let me go. So what I do always is reduce first your toxicological load. How do we know that what we need to reduce? Well, there's some basic checklist we can do for that. For example, see what your food is coming in terms of packaging, or where your food is coming from in the first place. Of course, choose an organic, another very important area we need to take care of. And eating outside is always a risk because you never know what they're using. You don't want to use Teflon by any means, so that's something that needs to be away from your life in any form and shape, because all the PFAS that are used in Teflon, and those are forever chemicals. You're never going to get them out of your body, or it's very hard to get them out of the body, and also get tested. If you get a good testing from a reliable company, and using urine testing usually is the typical one, you can also see what you have the most, or maybe what's passing through your body the most. Maybe it's not getting accumulated, but at least you know your exposure, and then you can be more proactive in taking care of that exposure and limiting the exposure as much as you can. So that's something I will definitely recommend. And support the microbiome, because the microbiome is taking care of these toxins. If you don't take care of your microbiome won't be able to help you in the detoxification process. So the better your microbiome, the better the ability for detoxifying. And sometimes we are a little bit in opposing ways, because the toxins are creating damage to the microbiome. So we think, well, maybe it's not really the right time for doing something for supporting the microbiome, because it's getting so much damage from those toxins. It's not true. We need that microbiome in the best shape possible from the beginning of any detoxification protocol, even if it's not going to get that better right away, but eventually it's going to get more and more balanced, because you're removing a damaging element, which are toxins. So there's some probiotics that can actually help a lot with detoxification. I will list them here, but we have many type of strains of Plantarum and Reuteri and Brevis. And I know with Martha, you have been talking a lot about this type of microbes, and also some keystone species that are really helpful for improving the functioning of your gut and your body for elimination of toxins. Immunoglobulins, I sometimes use them as a therapeutical approach. And I know I'm running short of time, but I want to get you something else before I'm. By the way, this is the Ultra Binder. This is a really good binder you can use on a general form. It has different types of binding elements for taking out these different types of toxins. But again, take care that binders, they can also be a little bit harsh for your intestinal mucosa. So you have to take them with hopefully a good guidance. Don't take them randomly and in a long-term basis. You have to use them with a purpose. And last thing, lifestyle. Check air purifiers if you live in a polluted area, or with wildfires or things that can pollute the air. Water purifiers. Don't ever drink tap water, please. Get a good reverse osmosis filter and filter your water, and then replenish the minerals with a good electrolyte support. And the other thing is EMFs. As you can have a router or a Wi-Fi modem in your house, in your room. Try to reduce as much as possible, especially on the sleep time, the exposure to radiation. That's critical for detoxification. And try to get more dirty and eliminate all these cleaning agents that are so bad for you. Try to use more vinegar and more natural solutions for your cleaning routines, and go outside. One thing I always mention, which is super important, no support, no supplement will compensate being inside your house all the time, not interacting with people, animals, and nature. That's a key component for getting healthy. If you don't go out there and you don't share microbes and and information and thoughts and emotions with other people and nature and hopefully animals, you're not really going to get much better with all the other tools available. So you need to put that in conjunction. You can't mimic nature inside your house. You need to go out there and find it. And that's it. This is my contact, by the way. I own a company. It's called Revolution Gut Health. It's a coaching company that supports people with, again, detoxification and microbiome challenges, and we do everything we can for helping and trying to improve this in the best of our possibilities. It's online, so it can be accessed from anywhere in the country and even outside the country. So that's a QR code, and you can look it up. That's my website, Revolution Gut Health.
Thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing all your wisdom. And we would love it if you would share that presentation with us.
Yeah, of course. I will send it to you. You can read it in your spare time and take don't you
Well,
have to leave.
you know, we meet every 2 weeks, and so they always come back with other questions. And what I can do is also get the questions that didn't get answered tonight and just follow up with you and send the response back out.
And in any other opportunity, we can meet again and we can go through more questions and maybe have an open conversation about things like this.
Yes. Well, and I just sent you 3 papers on bile acids that I had pinging around this morning. So I'll send you those and we can have a conversation about that and hydrogen sulfide.
Can you send me a couple of days of vacation so I have time for reading them?
I know.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Martha. I always love to share information with you. You know that.
We hope you'll come back again.
I would love to. Thanks for everyone that came, attended today. It was lovely to talk to all of you. And yeah, be in touch if you need anything.
And I'll send you a follow-up of the video too, Haroldo, if you want to use it for anything. Okay, great.
Oh, thank you. Have a great night. Take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay, well, it's just me now. If you still want to ask a question, I can see if I can answer it. If not, I will collect it for Haroldo and follow up with him, and I'll put him in the. So Dale, do you still have a question, or was it specific to Haroldo? I can collect it and ask him to get us a response. Dale. There we go. Oh, it was a software thing. Okay, Mary. Yeah, we can't hear you. You're muted.
I know. I was looking for my microphone.
Oh.
Okay. So, well, I'm doing better in some areas, but still not doing well with the digestion of the food. So my question is about the simple slumber. So I like to take the yogurt because if I take just the pill, it's just not quite enough. I guess it's not strong enough, not enough microbes. But I keep hearing that I shouldn't be taking anything to eat before I go to bed. So at what time of the day should I take that simple slumber?
I mean, I usually tell people to take it about an hour before they go to bed. And I understand that because people are like, don't eat right before bed. But I've actually started taking a small shot of kefir before I go to bed. So I don't know. And I have heard before that a little bit of protein before bed can actually help you sleep better. So I think there's a little bit on this fasting craze where people are afraid to eat at different, and I think we can get maybe a little overly obsessed with that. And for me, I don't typically eat in the morning, but I have actually started eating in the morning again. And
yeah,
trying to be less obsessive about those windows of time as much. Because I think one of my problems is I started extending my intermittent fasting for so long, and I actually do need food in the morning. So I would say, an hour before bed and see how you feel.
Okay.
But
I really like to sleep at night, and when I
the
take
other option is you could take 2 capsules. I do have 2 people who take 2 capsules, but that's a more expensive option. So
yeah. Okay. So, then the other one was I'm using a product called FD Guard, which has caraway seed oil in it, and that kind of slows down my gut. So I'm doing that, and once in a while I'm taking a binder. I don't know if those are. I just don't know what else to do. So that's what I'm doing. Any suggestions? Because my gut everything just goes through quickly.
I mean, typically that's, you've got I mean, our body is trying to get rid of something when that's happening. So, have you tried the Ideal Immunity? Because that has a specific strain in there that is very targeted to foodborne pathogens. And I think I mentioned before, I have this doctor in Hawaii that had chronic diarrhea that, it was just constantly going. And that's the only thing that's worked for him. Since the 1970s, he tried stuff for how many years is that? 40 years, 50 years. So you might try that, but typically that's the body trying to rid itself of some kind of a toxin or a pathogen or I don't know. I'll do some research on and see if I can't find like what the signaling molecules are that are accelerating peristalsis and see if I can come up with anything.
I have cut back to no raw vegetables at all. That has, I just can't tolerate them. So I've been eating just the fermented foods and very small servings of cooked vegetables. And then I do have the Ideal Immunity. I have made yogurt out of it, but I have a refrigerator and I have like 6 yogurts, so I can't eat.
I mean, that's what my refrigerator's like. I have like 4 jars of kefir and 4 jars of yogurt in there, and there's not room for any other food. I need a yogurt refrigerator. I'm thinking about getting another little mini yogurt refrigerator.
There you go. Okay, so I should, if I try the Ideal Immunity and the capsule form, like maybe I could take it twice a day. What do you think?
Yeah, I would take it twice a day.
Okay, I'll try. But the thing is, you have to separate all these things like for about 2 hours. Like sugar shift.
Well,
I take sugar shift twice a day, once with each meal.
You could take sugar shift. You could take sugar shift and the Ideal Immunity together.
Together?
Yeah, those are not going to interfere with each other as much as some of the others would.
Okay, those I have been separating things out because I've been listening to you, and that's what I've been doing. Like I take my SIBO yogurt like at least 2 hours before sugar shift and stuff like that. So, yeah. Okay, I'll try the Ideal Immunity and see what happens.
Okay.
At least a month, right?
Yeah. Norman Jean.
Hi there, everybody. I have a question about sugar shift. I went back to just I take 2 capsules, but I take them in the morning because I take them 12 hours apart. It's usually too close to bed. So do you think should I maybe try like 3 in the afternoon? Because I mean, I'm awake for 3 hours almost every single night, like between 2 and 5. So last night I actually drank about 2 ounces of orange juice before I went to bed because I know it's a blood sugar thing, and I know my cortisol spikes. It hasn't been tested, but I'm pretty sure that that's it. So I know if I get up and drink orange juice, I will fall asleep quicker. So I just tried, okay, let me just take the orange juice before I go to bed. And I didn't wake up until 5:30, but that was
So
still,
yeah, so you're probably getting hypoglycemic taking it before you go to bed. So I would say I would move it up and take your second one at lunchtime.
well, like I said, I even with taking it 2 in the morning when I get up, I take it at like 9 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock.
Oh,
in the
and
morning.
you're still having so I actually I was interviewed on a blog, not a blog, a podcast last Friday. It's not out yet, but one of the two sisters that does that podcast, it's called Critical Conversations, and one of them is a nutritionist. And one of the things she mentioned about waking up at night, which I'm now trying with John, is to have a salty, either your dinner meal be more salty or have a little pinch of mineral salt before you go to bed, because that's also one of the things that's signaling you to wake up in the middle of the night, is that lack of salt. So
that's actually what I heard with, I'm trying to think, it was the guy who runs Seeking Health.
oh yeah. Yep.
So he said to take your orange juice and put a pinch of salt in it, and keep it just next to your bed. And then when you wake up, just take a few sips of it. But the thing, even when I get up, like when I wake up like that and I can't go back to sleep, even if I get up and take orange juice, it still takes me a good hour after that to go back to sleep.
Well, so the other thing she recommended was throughout the day, and I'm actually going to get a CGM, I think, and have John try it to see, what his hypoglycemic periods are throughout the day. But she said to have orange juice and sip it very slowly throughout the day.
Okay.
So not drink it a bunch. So like maybe if you have, say you have your glass of orange juice and sip it.
It's not really one of those things that I like to do anyway, because
It's a lot of sugar. Well, what I would say is if you're going to have orange juice, you're much better off squeezing the orange yourself. But I mean, I know not everybody's going to do that, but because the commercial orange juices typically are not
not real orange.
or here's a suggestion: add it to water. Just water it down and get a little.
Actually, if I drink orange juice, that's what I drink. It's more water than orange juice. But when I do it for purposes of waking up in the middle of the night, I'll just come and take it's probably like 2 ounces, if it's that.
Yeah, I know too much about how orange juice is made because my brother actually, he was he's still a computer science guy, but he did a bunch of work for Tropicana orange juice, and he loved orange juice, and he won't drink it anymore.
Well, for a while, like when I had a Trader Joe's that was very close to me, so I would always buy their fresh squeezed, which it's still probably pasteurized and God only knows, but unfortunately I can't. Right. Like an hour and a half away from me now to get that. I had one other question I was going to ask too, but I don't remember what it was.
If you remember it, you can put your hand back up. Profil, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, I got so much, carried away with her answers, and I forgot the question. So I have to call you back.
Okay.
I'll call you back.
Well, oh no, we got one more. Carradine?
Yeah. Hey, Martha. Okay, I want to get back to something that the doctor said about limiting exposure to EMFs. And somebody had a question in the chat about what does he do to limit exposure? And I guess I want to put that question to you. What do you do to limit exposure to EMFs in and around your environment? Because 5G is everywhere.
It's a little easier for us because we live on a farm in a remote location. I turn our Wi-Fi off at night. So it's on a little breaker switch. And so I turn that off. Now that doesn't mean there's no waves anywhere in the house, but so my printer goes to sleep. I turn off the regular Wi-Fi. And there's no electronics in our bedroom. So, we haven't had an electronic clock or any. And when I go into a hotel room, I unplug all the devices in the hotel. I unplug the clock. I mean, they probably hate coming in the room after I've been in there because I've unplugged the clock. They have to reset it. I've, done it. But, I mean, it's tough. I have a app on my, I mean, you don't want to do this. Trust me. If you live, because when we were living in kind of a dense part of, the southern suburbs of Denver, this app shows you all the different waves and stuff that you're getting. And I mean, it can be kind of alarming. And my son lives in Denver where he has a lot of exposure to it. And he actually bought a Faraday tent that fits over his bed. It is it hangs from the ceiling and it comes down and then it zips around the floor. So you are totally sealed in. Your phone, you can't get any signal in or out of it. And I mean, that's kind of an extreme case, but he was having so much issues with electromagnetics. And he has one of those monitors on his, like a watch. And I'll see if I can find it, if I can find the pictures of it. He had taken it down to do something with his bed, and he was having some major issues. And I asked him if he was sleeping in the tent, and he said, no, he hadn't been. And he went back and got the tent back, and it was pretty crazy. Trying to see if I can find the picture.
Crazy which way?
Just
when he got
how
the
much
tent back, he slept better?
His sleep quality improved, his heart rate, like everything, and his recovery, everything improved significantly after. I mean, we send each other so many things back and forth. It might be hard for me to find it. But Jen asked what the app is that I use. It's called the Architecture of Radio, and I can definitely show you what that looks like. So,
and Jen, I just want to throw in there, Martha, that there are like some companies, and there are more and more in this space that sell sort of like EMF, like personal EMF devices, I don't know, like pendants or things that you carry on your person to sort of
Harmony.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff.
I have something. Well, actually, I have somewhere in here. I don't know where it is. I have something like that, and I do have something like that I put on my phone. But I read a lot about this shungite. I don't know if you've ever heard of shungite.
I've heard of that.
So I just have like a rock that sits on top of my Wi-Fi router. And then, John.
I have a rock.
John,
I'm sitting on a rock right now.
Okay. John has a little Faraday cage for his phone that he puts it in at night. And I have somewhere around here, like a cheaper looking one, the metal one, but here it is. You can get these, they're like a little mini Faraday cage, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge, especially if you live in an urban area, because there are so many different sources and so many different frequencies. It's just tough to deal with. And, we moved out here in kind of the middle of nowhere, but we still have signal coming in. It's just nowhere near like it was, when we lived in an urban area. But John is also very sensitive to planetary electromagnetics. And that's something that a lot of people don't look at, but the sun, the electromagnetics of the sun, and, when we get flares, and, you can go way down a rabbit hole on that. I don't necessarily recommend that, but we do notice that both my son and John have high sensitivity to the electromagnetic patterns of the sun, and also the changing of the Schumann resonance of the planet, there's a planetary frequency. So I think some people are just much more sensitive to changes in frequency and electromagnetic waves. And
yeah, is that just one thing? Is that impacted? Do you think that will be further impacted, and how, by the eclipse that's coming up next month?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, I sent a note to a friend of mine today. I said, "What is going on? Like, it is just insane today." And he said, "Well, as you start moving toward the eclipse, you get a kind of an energetic shift." So.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
And it can start like a month in advance. So I think we're about a month away from.
We are less than a month away.
John and I actually, we went to the total eclipse in 2017, to Scottsbluff, Nebraska, and it's a very strange. I mean, it's so. I have this book by a gentleman by the name of John Ott. It's called Health and Light. And I think I bought it for like $25. I looked it up on Amazon 2 days ago, because I was talking to these scientists about the effect of light on our body. And it is $650 on Amazon now. But he's the father of photobiology, and he discovered, because he was doing time series photographs for Walt Disney of a pumpkin, and growing so that they could have, all the way to the pumpkin. And anyway, he discovered that the different light spectrum changed whether or not there were both male and female flowers on the pumpkin. And he went on to look at impact in male and female births in animals. And so all this research, and ultimately ended up being the person who discovered how to photograph cells using light and pigments and stuff. And so he's really interesting. And he did some work with some doctors at Sloan Kettering who had discovered basically their cancer patients, if they told them to sit out in the morning sun for 4 hours a day, that their cancer would reverse. And they tried applying for grants and doing all of this. And of course, there's no money. They basically were told, well, there's no money in that. So nothing further happened. And there's another book called American Sunshine that I think it's from the University of Chicago Press, that talks about sunshine. And of course, we're inside all the time. So you have light frequencies, and you have electromagnetic frequencies. And then, of course, when there's an eclipse, you're losing all of those frequencies that you're normally getting. And, we are a quantum computer that's processing all this information. And so we're going through a massive amount of change with the chemicals in our environment, with what's going on with a major eclipse coming through, with all the technology, with it's a lot to deal with. And we just have to kind of do what we can, and not let it overwhelm us, and just try to kind of come back to the center and be at peace that we're doing the best job we can do.
That sounds good. And that book's $942 now. That's what Jen just put in the chat.
That's crazy. That's in 2 days it's gone up to that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Or if it's at the library, Is
Well,
anyone?
it probably is, or maybe I can give us a Cliff's Notes version on one of our calls or something. I think Profil remembered his question.
Okay. Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, so earlier I asked you a question about the sugar sift. Now, when I take a SIBO yogurt, I go to sleep really good. And what happens in the afternoon, I feel sleepy again and I get tired and so on. So do you have something which can give me energy in the afternoon, or what's wrong with that or anything?
Well, that's why I would say if you take the sugar shift yogurt, maybe if you take the sugar shift yogurt a little bit before the time that you normally get sleepy or when you get sleepy, that will give you that energy.
Okay, but is it going to be interfering with the SIBO yogurt? Is going to overlap or anything?
So when you said you're taking the SIBO yogurt at dinner.
At the dinner time, yeah. In the
Yeah,
evening.
you should be fine. That'll be fine.
Okay.
Plus,
very
if your SIBO yogurt is just the Rooterye, they won't interfere with each other anyway because Sugar Shift has Rooterye in it.
good. I see. So how does it give the energy? The Rooterite usually gives you.
Well,
makes
it's
you
because it's a combination of strains, so they're cross feeding each other. So if you're having the Rooterye by itself, you're kind of accelerating the Rooterye metabolites, where with the Sugar Shift formula, they're cross feeding. So some of those molecules that might make you sleepy are getting fed, cross fed to some of the other organisms. So you won't get that same sleepy effect.
Oh, got you. All right, very good. Thank you
Probably,
so
it's
much.
probably bacterial melatonin because Sugar Shift does produce bacterial melatonin. But you're just going to get more of that with the Rooterye, I think.
I see. Okay. All right, very good. Thank you.
Kathy?
Yeah, just a quick question. You mentioned your kefir, however you say it, earlier. I was curious, do y'all have a starter that you sell, or would you
We
mind
don't.
sharing?
I got mine from, I got grains from Cultured Food Supply. And I have so many of them now, I could probably mail them to people if they would pay the postage.
I would love some. Yeah.
Because I grow them. Well, so I do John's goat milk with them, and I do mine on raw Jersey A2 milk, and boy, did they love that raw milk. They multiply like crazy in the raw milk.
Wow.
It's
I
insane.
just have to tell you this, Martha, that there's a group on Facebook where I bought kefir grains quite a few years ago. It only costs $1 because all you have to do is take your kefir grains, stick them in a plastic. I know we're not supposed to use plastic, right? But a plastic bag, put it in a regular envelope and mail it. And they survive. And
wow.
I got the best kefir from that stuff. It was really good. But yeah, you just want to make sure your plastic bag is well sealed and it's not going to break or something like that in your envelope. I guess you could put it in a little fancier envelope, but
And
I mean, all
okay.
he did was
Well,
put it in
okay,
a
if you
regular
want
envelope.
kefir grains, if you put
send
your
you an email.
put your name in the chat, like say, and we'll go back and look at the chat of who wants kefir grains, and I'll send you a tablespoon of kefir grains.
Okay, that would be awesome. And do you just ferment yours on the countertop, or do you put it in a
I
water
do. I stick it on the countertop. Although if I'm making too much at once, like when I go get I go get 2 half gallons. And so when I'm doing that, I'll often like do one on the counter for quicker. And then I put the other one in the refrigerator and it just goes slower.
Okay. And on the counter, you leave it for 24 hours or longer?
I leave it till it looks like it's getting too thick, or, right
Starting to
before it
separate
starts.
or-
Yeah. Before it
Yeah,
separates.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll put my name in the chat.
And Martha, you said those are ones you got from Cultured Food Life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're fantastic.
Yeah, I
And
have a whole-
that's
I-
that's that GCMAF drink that John drinks in the morning.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I started making coconut water kefir soda.
You know what? I
Yeah.
just realized I have to have your address. Well, I probably have your address, but if you
I can
just
shoot you an email.
yeah, shoot me an email at my BiotiQuest address with your address, and it probably will be another week because I'm going to Las Vegas to speak at the Collaborative Science Conference, and so it'll probably be next week before I get to that.
The other thing about the kefir, I mix it with my the apple cider. What do we call it? With this? I can't speak. What's that bacteria that we mix it with?
Saccharomyces boulardii.
The Boulardii. It tastes great with kefir. Wonderful.
Well, there are a lot of yeasts. There will be a lot of yeast in a kefir because it's bacteria and yeast.
Yeah, but it tastes really good with your Saccharomyces boulardii.
Yeah, I talk to my microbes too, so
Oh, that's a good idea. I talked to
Well,
my
good,
dog.
Belly Life.
I
Happy.
thank them. I thank them for all their hard work. And I mean, I talk to my bottles of Sugar Shift before they go out and go tell them to do a good job.
And do they answer back, Martha? Do they?
They do
they
something.
talk
Well, I
back?
think they answer. I think they answer back because they answer back when people tell me how it's helped them. So,
Well, I
Yeah.
talk to my chickens, Martha, and I know you have chickens too. What do you feed your chickens? I posted in Dr. Davis's forum this morning about that to see if people are using organic food. I've been doing no corn, no soy, organic, and I only have 5 chickens, so it's not, super expensive.
we have like 30 something. We feed them organic feed, but I don't feed them every day because they have free range around the farm. So, and I feed them like leftover vegetable scraps, and John eats a papaya every day. So they eat the papaya skin and,
Yeah, I give mine, they get all that. And I actually give them a little bit of, if I have kefir, or if I have my probiotic yogurt whey, I'll give them a little bit of that. I give them kombucha, sauerkraut. And I ferment the food also. I always have some fermented in the refrigerator, and I give them a few scoops of that several days a week. But as far as their main food, their pellets, I didn't know how much of, if it has corn in it, it's going to have wheat, how much of that is actually going to the egg.
eggs are a very interesting phenomenon, and I could go on about that, but I'm not. I'm going to answer 2 last quick questions because I actually have an out of town guest coming, and I have to be ready when she calls me to go meet her at the gate because she can't get in unless I invite you in. So I think I have Mary and Jen. So
I can hold.
are you sure?
Actually, my question is to Jennifer was about. I didn't get anything about the counseling. You were going to email me information, and
Yep. You want to talk about the sugar shift coaching?
Yeah.
One? Yeah.
Or not, I don't know, whatever you were going to send me the information about what's available, and I could decide how to do that.
We have a sheet, and I'll email that to Mary. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. And did you have a question, Jen?
Oh, I did. And I know you've got to go.
That's okay.
I don't even know how I can formulate it, but if I remembered when you and Dr. Haroldo were talking, he or you said something about microbes that survive antibiotics are there to ferment antibiotics or to break down or to break down toxins.
Well, he said, I don't know if he said about the, hold on, let me see if I can pull this up. I don't know. I might not be able to remember the title of the paper. No. Oh, here we go. What I said was that antibiotics, they basically select for antibiotic resistant bacteria. And the bacteria that are most resistant to the antibiotics are those that produce antibiotics themselves.
Okay.
And so when you select for those, then they are left behind and they are able to continue producing antibiotics to strengthen their position in the niche. So they sort of crowd out other bacteria. So let me see if I can share this.
And that was making sense to me in regards to Reuteri. When we think about, where did,
Well, I'm just going to show you this
but I was losing everyone. Okay.
So this is a normal microbiome. This is direct antibiotic effects, and this is antibiotic resistant microbiome that's left behind after the antibiotics. And so, and these are kind of the overlap in the genes, and this is the networks of the mitochondrial genes that are affected by those antibiotics or by the resistome that's left behind. So, I mean,
Can you make that big? The slide is like small. Can you make it big?
It's beside me how maybe this will work a little bit better. Let's see. Is that better? Is that a little bit better?
That's okay. No, that's okay. That's all right.
I've got some problem with this Google thing.
So basically the antibiotics crowd out the other beneficial bacteria afterwards, correct? And then the
antibiotics will kill all the bacteria that are not resistant to them.
Okay.
And so then as your gut's repopulating, you have the resistant bacteria that are able to produce antibiotics. Like Ruterin it's a bacteriocin, a specific antibiotic to certain pathogens.
Okay.
But so it's, and just a number of most of the antibiotics were discovered in actinobacteria, I think. Mm-hmm. I think I have that right.
And I guess the thing the thought that I keep bumping heads with is when Dr. Davis talks about Reuteri as being vulnerable to antibiotics. So that's why we've lost, or one of the reasons why we've lost.
Right. One of the reasons why we've lost that. Yeah.
And yet it's such a powerful antimicrobial when it's in us.
But it's very specific, Okay. So like bacteriocins are very different than these broader spectrum antibiotics.
Okay.
So, and I would have to go back, and it's been a while since I've looked at specifically how Ruterin works. Mm-hmm. And what pathogens are most susceptible to, and Dr. Davis probably knows that way better than I do, but it's those broader spectrum antibiotics that are killing Reuteri and the lactobacillus. I mean, all the lactobacillus and the bifidobacteria, which are really our key players as our friendly gut bacteria.
Mm-hmm. So when you were talking about the resistome, that is not a good thing necessarily.
Well, no, it's not a good thing because, and this was actually, I need to get Raul to look at this in our new microbiome data. I think we did do some analytics on it, but I can't remember the results. But in one of our early studies where we just looked at 6 people, before and after sugar shift. And I think that was 60 days. They took it for 60 days. There was a 60% decrease in antibiotic resistance genes.
Wow.
So, you know, we'd need to do a more specific study on that, but that was that was a small group that we looked at.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, can I
thank you.
squeeze in? Well, can I squeeze in one? Okay, because it's for my plumber. My plumber doesn't sleep, and I'm trying to keep him happy. So he says he only sleeps from like 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. every day. So I'm gonna have him after the call. I'm gonna suggest that he get simple slumber. Should he start out with 2 at night at first, or just do 1?
I mean, I would try 1. I have some people who take 3. I don't recommend that. But I would always start with less. Always start with less and see.
Okay.
And then if that doesn't help, then I would go to 2 and see. But I mean,
Okay.
I have people who just tell me like, they swear by it. So
No, I hope it helps him. So he's going to take sugar shift in the morning, and then he'll do simple slumber at night. So
At night.
hopefully that'll help him. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
thank you. Thanks for coming, everybody.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.